a crowd. First of all, I want to thank you so much for praying for me and my family throughout this 1 year ordeal. It took about 10 months for me to recover enough to be able to get around well. Thanks for the many cards, the meals, the monetary gifts, and especially for the visits and the many prayers. There are 7 what I call miracles in this testimony. The 7th is what you see. I am here. And if the chain would have broken in the previous 6, I would not be here. Probably would not be here. So you have seen me since January, which was the lowest point, and you've followed me week by week until you see me here tonight by God's grace and love. As I am giving this testimony, I want you to remember what God told us through Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10, where he says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." The following things I have learned from various medical personnel and my family. So I have titled this, "The Greatness of Our Loving God." This is my story, but the real story is how great a loving, compassionate, and merciful God we have. August 11th, 2022, the date that changed me. As you know, I'm a ham radio operator. I was putting up a new antenna, 272 feet long, 41 and a half feet up in the trees. I had a ladder. The ladder ran out, so I climbed like the monkey. I got it up there. I was on my 3rd trip up the tree after drilling the holes, tapping it for the pulleys, and the limb that I was standing on snapped. Now you think 40 feet. Think of a 4-story house. That's a long way to fall. The first miracle, I do not remember falling. As I go below that tree and I look up, I can only wonder how I survived with all the limbs and where I landed. I could have been paralyzed, traumatic brain injury, or even death. The second miracle was my next door neighbor was out with his dog and saw me fall. If he would not have seen me, I wouldn't be here today. First thing I remember is Jim asking me if I was okay and what he could do for me. I told him, "Jim, I'm seriously hurt. Call 911. And after he called 911, I gave him the code to open my garage so he could go in and tell Debbie that I had fallen, was hurt, and the ambulance was on the way, and to keep the grandchildren in the house. The third miracle was the EMTs were on the scene in 2.5 minutes. Why? God knows. They were on their way back to the engine house from a prior run, and they were crossing the bridge at 36 and 257 when they got the call. So they came. I do remember them sort of working on me. I was starting to lose consciousness at the time. Once they got me up, and the reason why it took so long is they had to run their hands underneath me to make sure I was not impaled. So they got me up and they put me in this bag, and they pressurized the bag to stem any internal blood loss that I might have, and it's a darn good thing they did. Once inside the ambulance, I was in so much pain that they gave me a tranquilizer to calm me down and to knock me out. I put in here at this time, I'm totally in the Lord's hands. But as I read back through, no, I was in his hands the moment I fell. Upon arrival to Ohio State University Medical Center, Level 1 Trauma Center, I guess I was in very critical condition. They were losing me again, meaning again, they'd already used the AED paddles on me in the ambulance. My heart had stopped on the way to the hospital from internal blood loss, so I went right into surgery. Dr. Whistler, a thoracic surgeon, opened me up from my sternum to my pubic and found that the main artery going into my liver had been ruptured. So that's why they had no blood pressure, and he had never seen this type of injury before. And then miracle number 4 took place. I mean, one after the other after the other. There was a Dr. Singh on call in the hospital. He is a liver transplant surgeon, and he was able to repair that rupture. During all this time, the medical team continued to put blood in me. Total, I think it was 7 or 8 units of blood in me to keep me going because my hemoglobin was so low and I had very little blood pressure as a result. At some time, my heart stopped beating again. And because my abdomen was open, they could not use the paddles on me. They had to give me CPR. So what happens when they give you CPR? They break your sternum. It was sometime during that I had a out-of-body experience or spiritual vision that, even though I was unconscious, upset me very much, which in turn upset Debbie. I don't know if it was Sue Bilsing, somebody called into the church, and the prayer chain kicked in from Delaware Bible. My loving wife was praying by my side all the time that she could be there and praying for a miracle. And my daughter, Rebecca, put the news out on Facebook, and the prayer chain expanded tremendously. After I was stabilized, there were many tests being done, and I am so glad I was not conscious. All of my injuries were confined to the left side of my body. My pelvis was badly broken, actually split. I had 8 broken ribs, 5 broken vertebrae. My left shoulder was not usable, a collapsed lung. I had a blood clot in my lung, and so I had a drain tube there. I had a drain tube in my lower abdomen. I had a ruptured artery going to my liver. My spleen was roughed up. My sternum was broke. Traction set had been set up to put in my leg to pull my pelvis back into proper alignment so surgery could be performed. A week or so later, I don't believe I'm still awake. They were still trying to get blood from me, but my arms from my elbows down were black, and my hands. They collapsed all my blood veins trying to get that blood. There was a Dr. Hoist who was answering a code blue and who heard me yelling at them because I was in pain. He stopped by to see what was the matter, and he said he would see me on his return, and he did. He brought his whole team with him, and they put one of the things in my neck, and they were able to draw blood through my neck, so my arms were getting a break. That was miracle number 5, because Dr. Hoist was an Army orthopedic trauma surgeon with 2 tours in Afghanistan patching up Marines, and he knew I was a Marine. And I believe that God used that man to turn around my healing and my sanity because he cared. And then I found out later he is a believer, and he works with the Gideons. All the while, Debbie was by my side, along with my daughter, Rebecca, our son, Ben, and my great friend, Kenny Hughes, and his wife, Betty, who dropped everything in Florida to be by my side. On the 9th day, my orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Pfeiffer, and team prepped me for surgery to repair my pelvis. Before being rolled into surgery, I grabbed her hand and would not let go. And I prayed for her and the team for a successful outcome. They did have a successful outcome and left a pretty good scar where 121 staples sewed me back out or put me back together. She told my wife no one had ever prayed for her like that. After I came out of that, I prayed for and with everyone that I could. There was a Muslim nurse that even let me pray for her. I remember telling her that we both serve the same God, and my God is the loving God, and I thanked her for taking care of me and allowing me to pray for her. After 16 days in SICU, surgical ICU, I was brought down to a step-down unit for 4 days and was moved to Sarah Moore Home. And the first weeks in there were very, very dark for me. Between the drugs, not being comfortable with my surroundings, I was very depressed. I could not read my Bible because I had very, very little concentration. I couldn't follow it. I didn't even have to turn a TV on for 24 days. I couldn't do it. I couldn't follow it. But my family members, friends were visiting on a regular basis. It took a long time for me to get myself right. And the only thing I could do is pray diligently for myself and my future, thanking God for where I was at, for my family, my friends, and my fellow believers. And like I said, nothing could flow smoothly, so I just continued to pray. Miracle number 6 took place one early morning at the rehab center. God told me that I was going to be okay, and all I had to do was work at it. So I did. In all my prayer time, I was asking the Lord, since he saved me, what did he have in store for me? What do you want me to do? It took some months to get that answer. And I knew that all the prayers were working because I was getting better each day. After 24 days in rehab, I was sent home to an in-home rehab and started doing much better because I was home, but I had lots of restrictions. No weight bearing was the worst. So I had a wheelchair, had people come over and help load me in the van to take me to my doctor's appointments and all that. After the wheelchair, I had a walker. That's when I first started coming back to church. I was in a walker. And then finally, I was able to go to outpatient therapy, and they got my legs working pretty darn good, my pelvis, everything. And then no time at all, well, I say no time at all, probably 6 months, I was walking unassisted. Shortly after my lower body rehab, I went to have my shoulder replaced, which left me in rehab again for another 15 weeks. It was during this time that God finally told me what I was to do. That was on the 19th of March, while sitting here in church. And I asked God, why? He showed me Michael Schuette this image when my heart had stopped. And he told me to give my testimony and to create a picture to show people what I had seen during this out-of-body spiritual vision experience. So I worked on it. I am not an artist. I have artists, great-grandparents who were beautiful artists. I mean, could do anything, not me. So I sketched it out. I tried painting it. It would not come out painted. But I finally got it done. And Debbie knew I had seen something terrible. Why did I have to see it? I don't know if you can see that very well. This is my sketch. I believe this is the gates of hell. You got your pit, you got your fire, you got a bridge. There's nothing but ships and aircraft and people lined up here to go through the gate. People jumping off to collect the gold and the silver. They're not paying attention to what God has for them. What God has for them is up here, if you believe in him. So here I am with my buddy Kenny. We are walking across the bridge. I am seeing this. I'm up here, and I am seeing this. And I looked at Kenny. I said, Kenny, where are the wives? He said, Mike, you know how women are. a restroom up there somewhere. So, I walked on across the bridge into the light. Scared me to death. Why did I see this? Well, God gave me the purpose. I am to show it and to give my testimony. Now, I know God is in charge of everything, and I'm a firm believer that He does love us enough to heal us from all injuries, both physical, mental, and spiritual. And I will continue to serve Him for the remainder of my days. Now, I'd like to leave you with the following from what Paul wrote in Ephesians chapter 3, verse 14 through 19. For this reason, I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth is named, and according to the riches of His glory, He may grant you to be strengthened with power through His Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your heart through faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may have strength to comprehend with all the saints what is breadth and length and height and depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled with the fullness of God. And again, thank you for praying for Debbie and I.